The atmosphere that once defined the Golden State Warriors as a symbol of stability and success seems to have dissipated. Today, the environment feels like a field filled with tension and uncertainty. The structure that sustained a dynasty is beginning to show cracks. The franchise that turned basketball into spectacle must now deal with a moment of redefinition, where misguided decisions could cost its very legacy. Amid rumors, speculation, and internal debate, the team stands at a crossroads that will demand more than talent. It will require courage and reinvention. The dilemma dominating the Warriors backstage isn't merely about contracts or salaries, but about identity. The team that conquered the world through movement, selflessness, and precision shooting now faces the wear and tear of prolonged dominance. The formula that once seemed infallible is showing limitations in a league that evolves rapidly and sees new protagonists rising everywhere. In the San Francisco offices, the challenge is clear: how to preserve a winning spirit as time takes its toll. The veteran core is still respected, but its collective impact fades. The connection between generations weakens, and the chemistry that once made the team flow feels increasingly distant. Some say the magic is gone. Others believe it only needs to be reignited, with new pieces, new ideas, and new faces capable of carrying the weight of the Warriors' name. Joe Lacob, long known for his ambitious vision and long-term approach, understands this as a critical juncture in the franchise's history. His decision to personally intervene in delicate matters shows how sensitive the team's future has become. He knows that every move, every roster choice, and every negotiation could redefine not just a season, but the entire image of a sporting empire. While executives search for solutions, external pressure grows. Fans, analysts, and former players are split between hope and pessimism. There's a widespread sense that the Warriors are trapped between two worlds, one of past glory and one of inevitable rebuilding. The challenge is to not get lost in that limbo. Recent seasons have made it clear that the once revolutionary small ball style has lost its punch. Opponents learned how to exploit its physical and tactical weaknesses. The defense, once known for its coordination and intensity, no longer commands the same respect. The lack of size and rebounding power has become a persistent problem, and the fixes so far have fallen short. Within that context, the team faces a quiet crisis. Inside the locker room, the weight of history and emotional exhaustion from years of battle are evident. Outside, there's market and fan pressure for renewal. Each game feels like more than 4 quarters of basketball. It carries the judgment of an entire era. It is in this turbulent setting that a rumor emerges, one capable of reigniting debate and excitement around the team: the potential arrival of Rhenz Abando. The Filipino's name began circulating among insiders and reporters as a bold potential move by management, a gamble that might seem unlikely at first glance, but carries undeniable technical and symbolic weight. Abando is seen as raw energy, explosive, intense, and defensively fearless. His style recalls the days when Golden State embodied grit and collectivity. He plays like someone with something to prove, and that mindset is exactly what a tired, predictable rotation lacks. The news spread with astonishing speed. Within hours, forums and social media were flooded with messages from Filipino fans celebrating the possibility. The excitement is justified. The NBA remains largely uncharted territory for players from the Philippines, and Abando joining such an iconic franchise would be historic. At the same time, it would represent a new step in the Warriors' global strategy, one long focused on connecting cultures and expanding reach beyond the court. For many, this move would hold dual significance. Technically, Abando would bring defense, energy, and attitude. Symbolically, he would rekindle the emotional bond between team and fan. The Warriors have always been more than a basketball team. They've been an idea, a style of play, a source of inspiration. And the Filipino, with his vibrant approach, could become the new embodiment of that spirit. Behind the scenes, information is handled with caution. No executive confirms public interest, yet sources close to the situation suggest the possibility is real. The urgency to settle internal issues is part of the equation. The Warriors need quick answers, and each day of indecision deepens the feeling of paralysis. As time passes, the franchise tries to balance tradition and change. Even the mere mention of Abando's name has made an impact. He represents not just youth and energy, but hope, that the team might once again play with soul. His arrival would be like opening the windows of a room closed for too long, letting in fresh air, new ideas, and a renewed narrative. The Warriors, once the epicenter of innovation, desperately need to rediscover the joy of surprising. Stephen Curry remains the heart and mind of the franchise. At 37, he continues to defy time and expand limits. But even the greatest leader needs fuel around him. He can no longer bear the entire weight of victories, comebacks, and titles alone. He needs a supporting cast that complements him, not one that drains him. In that sense, Abando's arrival would inject the kind of energy the team has missed for years. Curry is more than a brilliant shooter. He is the embodiment of the system. When surrounded by players who value sacrifice and intensity, the Warriors are reborn. Abando would fit perfectly into that framework, someone willing to run, fight for every ball, and ignite the arena with passion, not to shine alone, but to revive the collective. Fans, especially within the Filipino community, see in this opportunity something larger than a simple signing. It's about representation, about seeing one of their own ascend to basketball's highest stage. This emotional connection could turn regular games into cultural events, uniting distant passions under a single roar. And for the Warriors, that bridge between cultures carries immeasurable value. Historically, the franchise has understood that basketball is about more than statistics. It's about impact, charisma, and storytelling. Since the start of the modern era, the team has positioned itself as the vanguard of both style and mindset. Now, by entertaining the idea of adding Abando, it seems to be reclaiming that instinct to go beyond the obvious. Yet obstacles remain. The transition will not be simple. The current roster needs deep restructuring, and one new talent alone won't solve systemic issues. The perimeter defense must be reinforced. The secondary offense lacks consistency, and the rotation remains uneven between experience and youth. Even so, Abando could be the spark for a new chapter. His presence would remind everyone that Golden State can still dare, that the creative fire which built a dynasty isn't gone, just dormant. And perhaps it will take someone from afar, driven by hunger and courage, to awaken it again. The executives know time is short. The coming weeks will be decisive in defining both the season's direction and the tone of the future. Silent negotiations unfold. Meetings happen behind closed doors. Phone calls between general managers seek the right price for every move, all while fans grow impatient, demanding results and clarity. Modern basketball is merciless to those who hesitate. The franchises that reinvent themselves first reap the rewards. Those that cling to the past become trapped by it. The Warriors must decide which side they stand on, and perhaps by betting on Abando, they would send a message that they still have the courage to be the team that sets the rhythm, on and off the court. The transition of an era is always painful, and in the case of Golden State, that pain is amplified by the recent memory of glory. For nearly a decade, the team lived in a state of almost mythic perfection. Every game felt like a celebration of a basketball style that redefined the sport. But time inevitably takes its toll. The mechanism that once worked with surgical precision has begun to creak, and this is the moment when it's decided whether a dynasty ends or transforms. The front office tries to avoid the word rebuild. It sounds like weakness, like a confession that the empire has crumbled. But in practice, that's what it is, rebuilding without admitting it. The challenge is to renew without dismantling, to change without erasing what was built. The idea is to preserve the legacy while planting the future, an almost impossible balance. The veterans carry the flame of experience, but also the weight of years of battles. They know what it is to win, but they also know the exhaustion of having to prove it all again. Curry still inspires, Draymond still defends, but the flame that once ignited the entire roster now seems confined to isolated moments. The collective brilliance has dimmed. What used to be movement and fluidity has become trial and error. The possible arrival of Abando appears as the breath of vitality this group needs. He wouldn't come to replace anyone, but to re-energize. His aggressive defense, his leaps, and the way he plays with body and heart recall the kind of energy that has been missing in recent years. The idea of him sharing minutes with the starters rekindles the possibility of seeing Golden State playing with total intensity, that rhythm where every possession feels like the last. In market terms, the move is also strategic. Golden State has always been more than a winning team. It is a global brand. The arrival of Abando would expand the franchise's reach into one of the most passionate basketball regions, Southeast Asia. The Filipino audience is known for its fanaticism and digital engagement. A single post of Abando wearing the Warriors uniform could generate millions of interactions. For an organization that understands the value of global marketing, that's not a detail, it's expansion. But for this new phase to begin, inevitable decisions lie ahead. The roster needs adjustments, the locker room needs unity, and management needs the courage to cut ties with anything that no longer serves the greater purpose. Hesitation is the greatest enemy of success. That's why time has become the most critical factor in this equation. Every week of inertia brings the team closer to a dangerous zone, competitive oblivion. The fans can feel it. The Chase Center, once a temple of euphoria, now alternates between moments of silence and impatience. The crowd recognizes the effort but also senses the lack of direction. What's missing isn't talent, but clarity. The team that once seemed to predict the future now merely reacts to events. And for a franchise used to leading, reacting is the same as losing. Inside the locker room, there's a mix of pride and frustration. Veteran players try to project confidence but know the margin for error is minimal. Young players are still fighting for space, while the rotation struggles to balance rhythm and consistency. The coach, meanwhile, must reinvent a system that has been copied and deciphered throughout the league. Genius now must be paired with reinvention. Behind the scenes, the perception is growing that Golden State can no longer depend solely on its past. Future decisions demand boldness and detachment. The signing of Abando, risky as it may seem, represents a step in that direction. He doesn't carry the pressure of being a star, but he brings the emotional fuel that could reignite a team searching for identity. The international reaction to the mere rumor is already a sign of what the move would mean. The Filipino community flooded the franchise's social media with messages of support. Entire cities in the Philippines began following every piece of news about the topic as if it were a championship final. This spontaneous connection shows basketball's cultural power and how one well-chosen move can unite continents. Within the league, however, some view the move with skepticism. More conservative executives question whether Abando is truly ready for the immediate leap. The NBA game is faster, more physical, more unforgiving. But it's precisely in this kind of doubt that Golden State built its legend. When everyone doubted small shooters, they created the system that dominated the world. When everyone demanded power players, they answered with technique and intelligence. Risk is part of the team's DNA. That's why Abando's potential arrival isn't just a sporting gamble, but a philosophical statement. It's a declaration that the franchise still believes in itself, in its ability to find talent where no one else looks, to turn the improbable into spectacle, and above all, to remain relevant even when the light seems to fade. The next chapters of this story will be decisive. Management will have to handle simultaneous pressures, fans' demands for renewal, respect for veteran idols, and the challenges of an increasingly competitive market. One mistake could cost a season. One hesitation could cost an era. Meanwhile, Stephen Curry remains the beacon in the storm. His presence, his work ethic, and his loyalty keep alive the hope that there's still time to rewrite destiny. But even he knows basketball is a collective game. No player, no matter how great, wins alone. And perhaps that's precisely why the team needs a new face, someone who symbolizes this transition and brings back the passion that once made Golden State one of the greatest stories in modern sport. The idea of renewal doesn't scare the franchise. The fear is becoming irrelevant. Golden State built a culture rooted in innovation, and that's what must be recovered now. Abando's energy, Curry's charisma, and the search for new protagonists can form the foundation of a new chapter. The challenge is to align all this with planning that balances emotion and reason. In the corridors of the Chase Center, there's a growing awareness that the time for hesitation is over. The next decisions will define not only the season, but the tone of the future. And if there's one thing this team has learned through all its years of glory, it's that calculated risk is better than comfortable paralysis. Golden State has always been driven by boldness. It was like that when they changed the way basketball is played. It was like that when they bet on underestimated players, and maybe it needs to be like that again now. The rumor of Abando, which began as an isolated spark, could be the first sign of a larger turnaround. The franchise's history teaches that when the flame seems to go out, that's exactly when the fire starts to grow again. There are no guarantees yet, but there's something more important, the feeling that something is about to happen. And in a league where emotion and narrative walk hand in hand, that's the first step toward change. The future of the Golden State Warriors hangs between the end of one era and the beginning of another. What comes next depends less on names and more on courage. Courage to change what needs to be changed, to bet on those who truly believe, and to accept that even the greatest dynasties must reinvent themselves. If Rhenz Abando's arrival truly materializes, it could mark the rebirth of a team that never stopped dreaming big, even when the world began to doubt. Stephen Curry remains the beating heart within this silent rebuild. His leadership, more than his shooting, is what keeps alive the flame of the impossible. And that's why, even amid uncertainty, Golden State still inspires. Because as long as there are players willing to fight and fans willing to believe, the story never ends. It only changes form. Now, the ball is in your court. If you believe this new phase can reignite the Warriors' spark, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Here, every video is made for those who live basketball with intensity, for those who want to understand not only what happens on the court, but everything that drives the game behind the lights. Your participation keeps this community alive, vibrant, and connected. So support the content, share it with other fans, and get ready. Because Golden State's next great turnaround may be starting now, and you'll want to be here to see it all unfold.